Good afternoon, dear students. Today we are going to make a quick revision about the first term. Unit 1 talks about mass and weight. The most important part in this unit, how can we answer the problems? First, we have to know the rules that we want to calculate the weight on the earth and the weight on the moon. We know that the weight equal mass times 10. So, if I have a problem like this, a body whose weight is 20 Newton on the moon, how can we calculate the weight on the earth? By applying the rule, weight on earth equal weight on moon divided by 1/6, which is equal 20 divided by 1/6, which is equal 1200 Newton. This is the weight of the earth. How can we calculate the mass? The mass equal weight divided by 10 equal 1200 divided 10 equal 120 Newton. So, how can we calculate the weight on the earth and the weight on the moon? Weight on the earth equal mass times 10. The second rule, weight on the moon equal weight on the earth times 1/6. But what about the mass? Don't forget that the mass of the object is a fixed value, doesn't change by changing the place. So if the mass of an object on the Earth's surface equals 60, so the mass on the moon will be 60 kilogram. The last part about Unit 1, mass and weight, the difference between them. According to definition, mass, it's the amount of matter in an object, while the weight, it's the force by which the body is attracted to the earth. The measuring unit for mass is gram or kilogram, while the measuring unit of weight, as we see, is Newton. What about the device? I can write any device for the mass. The most common one, as we know, the balance scale, while the weight is the spring scale. What about the direction? Mass has no direction, while the weight downward the center of the earth. Finally, the value. The value for the mass is a fixed value or constant value, or doesn't change by changing the place, while the weight is variable. This is about mass and weight, the comparison between them, and how can we answer the problems. What about the Unit 2? Let's see. In Unit 2, Lesson 1, we talked about the heat conductors and the heat insulators. What is the difference between them? According to definition, heat conductors, they are materials that let heat to flow through, while heat insulator, materials that don't let heat to pass through it. What about the examples? Heat conductors like iron, copper, stainless steel, and aluminium. And don't forget that the copper is the fastest metal in conducting heat, while heat insulators like the wood, the air, the plastic, the glass. The usage, we can use the heat conductors in making insulating glass window, in heavy blankets, woolen clothes to keep our bodies warm, while the heat conductors, we can use it in making cooking pots and kettles. And don't forget that leaving spaces between railway bars. Why? To avoid the train accident. While the glass is used in making windows to prevent the leakage of heat. This is the summary for Lesson 1 in Unit 2. What about the Lesson 2? Lesson 2 talks about the thermometer. The thermometer, we have two types, medical and Celsius. According to their definition, medical, it's used to measure the human body's temperature, while the Celsius used to measure the liquid's temperature. What about the scale? Medical from 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, while the weight from 0 to 100 degrees Celsius. The constriction is found in the medical and absent in the Celsius. And why it's found in the medical? This question is very important to prevent the mercury from returning back to its bulb. According to the used liquid, in both of them, mercury. Okay, why the mercury is preferred in making thermometer? As it's a liquid metal, it's a good conductor of heat, doesn't stick to the capillary tube, and it can remain in a liquid state from minus 39 degrees Celsius to 357 degrees Celsius. The most important part in this lesson that thermometers are making according to the change in the volume of the liquid by changing the temperature. As we know, liquids expand by heating and contract by cooling. This is for lesson 2. What about unit 3? We can summarize unit 3, which talks about oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and other gases in a table of comparison. Let's see. If I want to make a compare between oxygen and carbon dioxide, according to the source oxygen, it's a source, the green plants, which is the main source of energy, and they can make the photosynthesis process to produce their own food. While the carbon dioxide has many sources like the respiration of all living organisms, the respiration of humans and animals. Number 2, burning of organic materials, and number 3, burning of fuel in all means of transport. What about the ratio? The ratio here means the percentage. For oxygen, 21%, and carbon dioxide, 0.03%. What about the physical state? Oxygen gas, colorless, tasteless, and odorless, while carbon dioxide gas, it's a colorless and odorless only. But we can taste it when we eat it in many foods. What about the weight? Both of them are heavier than the air. What about the burning? Oxygen doesn't burn but helps in burning. Don't forget this. While the carbon dioxide gas doesn't burn and doesn't help in burning, so we can use it in extinguishing some types of fires. What about the reaction of magnesium? When oxygen reacts with magnesium, forming a white substance, which is a white powder, is called magnesium oxide. While the carbon dioxide gas, when it reacts with magnesium, it can form two substances. One of them is a white matter, which is magnesium oxide, and the other one is a black substance, which is the coal or carbon. What about the dissolving in water? Oxygen scarcely dissolves in water, so it's collected by downward displacement of water, while the carbon dioxide gas easily dissolves in water, so it's collected upward displacement of air. Don't forget this. Oxygen collected downward, while carbon dioxide collected upward. Okay, what about the uses? We can use the oxygen gas in respiration of all living organisms, combustion of food inside the human body, formation of water molecule, formation of ozone layer, during surgeries, climbing mountains, and also it can form oxyacetylene flame, which is used in cutting and welding metal, as its temperature can reach to 3,500 degrees Celsius. Why the uses of carbon dioxide gas? Making soft drinks, making dry ice, photosynthesis process, bubbled bread, and finally extinguishing some types of fires. As we said, it doesn't burn and doesn't help in burning. What about the chemical substances that we can use if we want to prepare the oxygen gas? Hydrogen peroxide and manganese dioxide as a catalyst. While the carbon dioxide gas we can use to prepare it hydrochloric acid, or we can say HCl, and calcium carbonate. Don't forget that the carbon dioxide gas turbid the lime water into milky due to the formation of calcium carbonate, which is CaCO3. What about the last lesson in this unit, which talks about nitrogen? It represents 78% from the volume of the atmospheric air. We can find it inside the legumes according to the presence of nodular bacteria, which affects the nitrogen from the air in the soil. We can find it in the soil after raining, forming nitrogen oxide. We can find it also inside our human body as it builds up our body and form protein. This is for unit 3. What about the last unit? Let's see. The nervous system, and the most important part in the nervous system, the nerve cell, which is the building unit of it. It consists of cell body and axon. And as we see, As we see on the board, it consists of the cell body, axon. Inside the cell body, we can find the nucleus, dendrites, cytoplasm, plasma membrane. While the second part, which is axon, is covered with a fatty layer called myelin sheath. It ends with axon terminals, and don't forget the function of the axon terminals and the function of the dendrites, both of them connected with other dendrites to form synapse. Then we talked about the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain, it can coordinate all the behaviors, emotions, while the spinal cord responsible for the reflex action. What about the peripheral nervous system, which consists of 43 nerves, 31 pairs of cranial and 12 pairs of cranial and 31 of spinal nerves. And it also can deliver the message between the body organs and all the central nervous system. The brain consists of the cerebrum, which controls the voluntary actions, the cerebellum, which controls the balance of the body, the medulla oblongata, which controls the involuntary actions. The last part, how can we keep the nervous system healthy? By staying away from pollution, tranquilizers, stimulants, addiction, staying away from or front of televisions, computers, and also doing exercises daily. The last lesson we talked about it also is the human locomotory system. And to let the motion happen, we must have muscles and bones. So the movement, it's the distinguish between living organism and the non-living organism to change their position from one place to another place. The locomotory system consists of two main systems, which are skeletal and muscular. But in this lesson, we will talk about only the skeletal. Let's see. The skeletal system consists of the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton consists of the skull, which protected the brain, the backbone, and the rib cage. The backbone protects the spinal cord and bends in all directions, and also the rib cage protects the heart and the lungs, and it can help in exhalation and inhalation process. Don't forget that the backbone consists of 33 vertebrae, while the rib cage consists of 12 pairs of ribs. The first 10 pairs of ribs are connected to an interior bone, which is called sternum. What about the appendicular skeleton? Consists of the upper limbs and the lower limbs. The upper limbs consisted of the shoulder, humerus, forearm, and hand bones, while the lower limbs consists of or connected first to the pelvic bones, then femur, shaft, and foot bones. The function of upper limbs help in writing, drinking, eating, holding things, while the lower limbs carrying the rest of the body, walking, standing, sitting, and running. The last part we talked about it, the joints. Let's see. Joints are the place in which the bones meet each other. We have three types of joints. Immovable, which means it doesn't allow any movement between bones, like the bones between the skull. A slightly movable joint, which allow movement in one direction only, like the knee and the elbow. And finally, the freely movable joints, which can move in all directions, like the shoulder, the wrist, the thigh, or the hip. So, in this term, we talked about the mass and weight. Don't forget how can we answer the problem. Don't forget to write the rule first before answering the problem. Number 2, the comparison or the difference between heat conductors and heat insulators according to their definition, examples, and usage. Lesson 2, the difference between medical thermometer and Celsius thermometer according to their usage, structural and constriction about the presence of it. In Unit 3, we talked about the difference between oxygen, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen according to their ratio, the usage, the preparation, the chemical substance that we use to prepare it, and also the uses. Finally, we talked about the systems which are found inside my human body, which are human nervous system, its structure and functions, and also the human locomotory system, which consists of the skeletal and the muscular, and what about the function for each part. Study well the functions of each organ inside my body and the location for each one. And study well the revision sheet and revise the question and its answers well. Thank you for your listening, and I wish you a good day. Good luck.